Donald Trump just canned the Super Bowl, not the game, his attendance. And the reason why reveals something his inner circle desperately tried to hide. They know exactly how unpopular he is, and they're terrified of what happens when 100 million people see it live. Trump's advisors told him directly, if you go to that stadium, you will be booed loudly on camera in front of the largest television audience of the year. One advisor told reporters clips of Trump being booed loudly in front of tens of thousands of spectators and potentially more than 100 million viewers at home going viral would be another thing we don't want right now. So Trump made up an excuse. He said California was too far away. The man with Air Force One said the trip was too long. But this connects to something far more dangerous, because while he's hiding from football fans, he's laying groundwork for something else. Let me show you. Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. As you know, it is already 2026. We're in the midterm election year, 9 months away from Election Day, 9 months today. And Donald Trump and members of his administration are already making moves to try to illegitimately take control of the American election system. Now, Trump doesn't want Republicans to lose the House and the Senate. One big reason in particular, I think, that he keeps making very clear, you got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached. I don't think he's wrong. And I really think he's very obsessed with legacy right now. Like, he does not want to go for his third impeachment. He's obsessed with keeping control of Congress. I think, honestly, primarily for that reason, because it's not like he cares about passing legislation or cares about other people's electoral fortunes. But the thing is, he's obsessed about keeping Congress, and he has no real plan to do it normally or legitimately, right? Despite all the bravado and the constant boast about never being more popular, they know the score. The administration actually understands that Trump is in trouble. The Republican Party's in trouble. And it's not just polling. Look at this. You might have seen this over the weekend. Texas special election that happened over the weekend, in which a Democrat flipped a red state Senate seat, winning by 14 points in a district Trump carried by 17 points in 2024. That's a 31-point swing. That is almost literally unheard of. Now, don't expect a blowout like that in November. You're going to have turnout that's going to be much higher. That was a low turnout election. And the Democrats tend to do better in those. But even a 10-point swing in the midterms would wipe out the Republican majority. Heck, a 5-point swing in the midterms would wipe out the Republican House majority. So they know what they're facing. They see the writing in the walls. And they know they don't right now, unless things change dramatically, have a path to just outright winning a free and fair election. Most normal incumbents who aren't Donald Trump see their party suffer losses in the midterms, right? So Donald Trump is exploring other plans. The first plan was to gerrymander congressional maps. Why leave it up to voters to choose Republicans when Republicans could simply choose their voters? And so Donald Trump tenaciously, constantly pushed red states to redraw their districts to be even redder, right? To change their congressional districts mid-decade. This never happens, right? Texas did it. Missouri did it. Ohio still may. But Trump's pressure generated a backlash first among Republicans. In, for instance, Indiana, who just told him to take a hike, wouldn't do what he wanted despite Jay Vance going there in person, inviting him to the White House, right? And also in blue states like California, which defensively redrew its maps. And so when all is said and done between California, what's happening in Virginia, maybe Maryland, the fact Indiana wouldn't do it, the whole thing made the gerrymandering war a wash. It could actually, in the end up benefiting the Democrats, because Donald Trump started this fight. So now midterm election year is upon us. That gerrymandering plan has really failed. I think they thought this was like their secret weapon, right? Their ace in the hole. No. So now it's time for the Republican Plan B. And they're saying this out loud, to fully seize the machinery of American voting. That warning deserves serious attention. We may be weeks or days away from Trump publicly suggesting the midterm should be canceled. He said it before in different contexts. The question is when he says it from the White House podium. Democrats need to prepare now, not react, prepare. Have the response ready before he says it. But let's return to the Super Bowl situation, because the details reveal the administration's psychological state. Trump attended last year's Super Bowl between Kansas City and Philadelphia. He received a mixed response, some cheers and some boos. That was before his approval ratings collapsed. Since then, everything has changed. His handling of the economy has driven supporters away. His immigration policies have generated sustained backlash. The killings of Renee and Alex Pretti, American citizens shot by federal agents in Minneapolis, created a turning point in public perception. His advisors looked at the current environment and made a calculation. The risk of viral humiliation outweighed any benefit of appearing presidential at a major sporting event. Think about what that means. The President of the United States is now making scheduling decisions based on where he might get booed. That's not strength, that's fear. And it extends beyond just the Super Bowl attendance. Remember what else was supposed to happen at the Super Bowl? ICE agents were going to be deployed throughout the stadium and surrounding property. Kristi Noem announced it publicly. It was framed as an immigration enforcement operation. Then quietly, very quietly, they walked it back. The same administration that projects toughness on immigration backed down from deploying agents at the biggest sporting event of the year. Why? Because they understood the optics would be devastating. ICE agents roaming through crowds of football fans, potentially detaining people at a family event watched by 100 million Americans. That footage would have defined the administration for months, so they canned just like Trump canned his appearance. The pattern is consistent. When confronted with situations where public reaction would be visible and uncontrolled, this administration retreats. That's important information. It means pressure works. It means public opposition has impact. It means they're not as confident as they pretend to be. Now, let me show you how members of Congress are framing the administration's immigration overreach, because ICE has become the most unpopular agency in the federal government. I just want to remind people that Kristi Noem won't be secretary forever. Donald Trump won't be president forever, suggesting that 3 years from now, we could have a Democratic president. We could have a new attorney general. That Justice Department would be empowered to do real criminal investigations of these shootings, of these beatings, and of these arrests. And so those agents may all get a federal pardon from Donald Trump so that the federal government won't be able to do that in the next administration. But without that pardon, this remains an open possibility for the next Justice Department to investigate, doesn't it? Of course. Well, we're going to have real attorney generals again, people like Robert F. Kennedy, people like Edward Levy, people like Janet Reno. We are going to have a real Justice Department again. We are going to have a real criminal division again that brings criminal actions against government officials who violate the civil rights of the people. We are going to restore and we're going to fortify and improve the rule of law. And we know it's not as simple as just turning the clock back to the time before Donald Trump, because obviously those were the conditions that allowed for Donald Trump and MAGA to penetrate our society and take over our government. We're going to have to fortify democracy and freedom to make them much stronger going forward. And having been through this nightmare together, and with the heroic resistance and opposition that we're seeing all over the country, we are going to make it through. We need to obviously mobilize the vote and keep winning the way we won in Virginia, in New Jersey, in California, in Alabama, the way we just won in Texas, a 31-point swing in a state Senate election. We're going to keep going, and we have to defend those elections, because Donald Trump, who obviously has no other program for America relating to health care, relating to housing for young people, relating to any public good, has one objective in mind, which is trying to steal the election the way he tried to steal it back in 2020, when he called the Republican Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, in Georgia, and said, "I just want you to find me 11,180 votes." That wasn't Donald Trump trying to stop election fraud. That was Donald Trump trying to commit election fraud. And he did it all over the country. And he will try again. But we are ready for him. And we have people fighting all over America to defend the democratic institutions that we've got. That framing matters strategically. Trump is doing the work of making the negative case against himself. The opposition doesn't need to exaggerate or distort. They just need to document and amplify what's actually happening. But Rashin's other point is equally important. Making the negative case isn't sufficient. Democrats need an affirmative vision. What does immigration policy look like when it's not driven by cruelty? How has immigration built and sustained this country? What's the positive case? That's the work that needs to happen alongside the resistance. Let me break down what the Super Bowl cancellation reveals about the administration's internal state. First, they're polling constantly. They know exactly how unpopular Trump is in different contexts. They knew a California crowd would be hostile. They knew the television audience would see it. They made a risk calculation and decided hiding was safer than facing the public. Second, the advisors have influence. Trump's instinct is always to seek attention, to be at the center of major events. His team talked him out of it. That means they have some ability to constrain his worst impulses when the stakes are high enough. Third, they're afraid of viral moments. The concern wasn't just being booed in person. It was the clips circulating online for weeks afterward. They understand that social media amplification turns a single bad moment into a sustained narrative. Fourth, the tough guy image is a performance. An administration that projects strength backed down from a football game. They backed down from deploying ICE at a sporting event. The gap between the rhetoric and the reality is becoming visible. Here's what to watch in the coming weeks. Watch for more canceled appearances. If Trump starts avoiding venues where crowds can't be controlled, it signals the Super Bowl pattern is becoming standard operating procedure. Watch the polling closely. Trump's advisors are clearly tracking his approval in granular detail. If public numbers continue declining, expect more defensive scheduling decisions. Watch for midterm interference. Chris Hayes' warning wasn't hypothetical. Trump has questioned election legitimacy before. If his numbers don't improve, expect escalation of that rhetoric. Watch ICE deployments. They back down from the Super Bowl. Will they back down from other high-visibility operations, or will they find venues with less media coverage? The broader story here is about the gap between projection and reality. This administration projects dominance, strength, control. They want to appear unstoppable. They want opponents to feel resistance is futile. But the Super Bowl cancellation reveals the truth. They're afraid of crowds. They're afraid of viral moments. They're afraid of uncontrolled public reaction. That fear is useful information. It means showing up matters. It means booing matters. It means making opposition visible and loud has psychological impact on the people making decisions. Batman showed up at a Santa Clara council meeting. ICE canceled their Super Bowl deployment. That's cause and effect. The legal battles matter too. Jamie Raskin notes that over 95% of injunctions filed against administration overreach have been successful. The courts are functioning as a check. Even if the Supreme Court creates uncertainty, every win matters. Legal wins, public pressure wins, forcing cancellations and retreats. The administration wants you to believe they're invincible. The Super Bowl cancellation proves they're not. A president hiding from football fans because his advisors are afraid of boos is not a president operating from strength. It's a president whose team knows exactly how fragile his public standing has become. Document that. Remember this. Hold on to it. Use it. When they try to project strength, don't forget they canceled the Super Bowl appearance because they were afraid of the crowd's reaction. That's the truth behind the show of confidence. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We're tracking every retreat, every cancellation, every signal that the pressure is having an effect. Like this video if you want more coverage. Leave a comment with your take on Trump skipping the Super Bowl and share this with anyone who needs to understand what's really going on. They want us to believe they're unstoppable. They aren't. And every time that illusion cracks, we move closer to winning. Stay engaged, stay vocal, and I'll see you in the next one.